If you're the type of black person that you've always had to work around white people and that's just been a way of life for you, and not only has it been a way of life for you, it's helped you benefit and feed your family, then you may mind a little more when it comes around being around white people than the average black person would.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast, where we talk to, at least this year in 2024, we are interviewing 100 black men who are making a difference. And when I say they're making a difference, I'm even more saying making an impact. Because when you're making a difference, you're changing a little bit of people. Your people are excited about you talking to them. You go out into the community, you're doing stuff. When you're making an impact, you're changing lives. And when you're changing lives, it's when somebody will go back to and say, I remember, in this case, it would be James because he's our guest today. I remember when James said this and this to me, and my life and my world changed. And so as we're going through these and we're talking to folks, we're remembering one of the buzzwords that we say now is the shoulders of giants that we get to stand on. And then we get to see, okay, what is happening in today's age and what's happening today? I was just talking to my wife earlier today, and we were talking about how the next generation is doing so many different things that it's hard for us to keep up with. They have so many great ideas. They have so many things that they're excited about. We're in this information age where when I was growing up, and this is before internet, and I'd have to go to the library and I have to get on the microfiche, and a lot of you guys have no idea what that even means, where there was card catalogs and I'd have to look up, and we had, I remember when I was a little kid, we had these green encyclopedias, and if I wanted to learn about Africa, I would have to go to the A encyclopedia, and then it would tell me about whatever countries in Africa that were there, and it would give maybe a paragraph about that country. Now, if I go to there and I type in Africa, it's too broad of a search, and I'll never figure anything out. It will tell me everything. Latitude, when a spaceship landed, it'll tell me everything. And so it's our ability to decipher information. But what really comes down to our success in this world is our relationships. And if I could say anything, is we can have all the information that we need. We can have information overload. We can look up anything on anybody. But unless we have incredible relationships, I think it's impossible for us as individuals to be successful. We can't do it on our own. It takes us being able to find other people who are doing maybe sometimes similar things that the things we want to do, and then we kind of let them guide us. Because if we just try to look it all up, there's great videos that are on YouTube, and there's places where you can get on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and you can be part of groups. But sometimes we end up in these groups where we are the smartest person in the room. And one thing, James, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but I've been told if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. Because there's always somebody that I can learn from. There's always somebody I can grow from. When I think about coaching, I have a coaching business. And, one of the things that somebody tells me, well, you can't coach me unless you've done what I want to do. And I go, well, when I think about that, and you think about just athletics, right? If you think about the National Football League, and you think about how many coaches that have Super Bowl championship rings that never played football. Because what really is happening is those coaches have to have the ability to get you results. And if they can get you results, it doesn't matter if they played or not. It doesn't matter if they've done the thing or not. If they can help you get the results that you desire, well, if your community that's around you helps you get to that point, then you need to hang on to that community. If that community that's around you is bringing you backwards, then you need to find a new community. And so when I think about James as he's coming on today and he's going to tell his story to us, he is from a different part of the country than I'm from. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, which is, for most of you here, Denver, I can't imagine the things that you think of. But what I don't think you think of is there's a lot of black people in Colorado. That's probably the last thing that you're thinking, that are doing it and from the South. And then I moved to California for several years. But James is from Kentucky. He's from a part of the South that is hard for me to understand sometimes because I didn't grow up in that environment. I didn't grow up with some of the stigmas that are there. Now I had, believe me, the Klan was in Colorado when I was growing up, and they were alive and well. And there's a lot of things that happen in Colorado, but it's different than the type of segregation and the type of things that seem to happen or have happened in the South. And so a different perspective, and yet we've been able to come together. We've been able to create a relationship. We've been able to figure out ways that we can move forward in this life. And so what I want you to do, because I'm talking too much and I don't want to spend the whole time talking, but I just want to kind of set the stage of, you don't want to miss these. You want to subscribe to these. You want to, click the bell, whatever it is that you do to listen to this, because I'm the one who's winning right now, because I get to listen to 100 Black men who have incredible stories that can help me in my life so that I can move forward. And I promise you they can help you in your life. You just have to listen to them because I'm putting them together for you, right? And so, James, thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for your willingness to come on and kind of just be vulnerable a little bit about who you are and your life. Because all of us have a different life, and all of us have obstacles that we went through, and all of us have, things that have been great that we've gone through, and things that we're excited about. And, I know you're excited about your business and where it's going to go and how it's going to get there. But you didn't start out that way. You didn't start out in high school. I'm excited about a real estate business. You probably didn't even know you were going to be in real estate when you were in high school, or what you were going to do with your life. And so just excited to hear your journey and what you've gone through. And then we're going to get to talk about where you get to go. Well, again, thank you for being on the show. Go ahead and tell us all about you. I'm going to be quiet here, and I'm just going to have some fun listening to who you are.
Absolutely. Brian, first, I want to say it's a pleasure for you to have me on as a guest. And kind of like what you said, yes, I grew up in Kentucky, Georgetown, Kentucky, to be exact. I'm from a rural part of Kentucky. At my high school, it was only a few Black people there. And it's kind of one of those things where most of the Black people that are at your high school are your family. So I had a lot of, I want to say, besides my family, there was maybe only two other sets of Black families that attended my high school. So very, very, very small. I grew up on a farm where we did tobacco, we did beef cattle, and my childhood was kind of unique compared to a lot of my peers. Every summer, and not just summers, but on weekends, it was work out in the field, to the point to even some of my friends, they came out to work with me. It would be short-lived, maybe for a week or two, but that was just kind of a way of life for me. And it got to the point to where when I got my first little job working at McDonald's, I was so happy because I was working in air conditioning. And that was just kind of a win to me, just to be inside of air conditioning and not be sweating outside in the field or something like that. And just from there, it kind of instilled in me what I didn't know was kind of a good work ethic that I found out growing up a lot of people just do not have. But as far as real estate goes, and kind of like what you were leading into, I didn't think about real estate growing up. I remember my dad, he had a lot of friends, most of which were white men, farmers just like he was. So that was kind of his circle. And some of those farmers he had are very successful in farming. They transitioned into other businesses. And, back then for Black people, there really wasn't a transition. Once you get in a specific job or something, especially people like our parents' age and our parents' parents, you work that job until you retire or until you die. And that's just kind of how it is. There wasn't a second career or a second gig or anything that you do like that. So he knew a lot of folks that got into real estate. And, we're talking back in the late 80s and early 90s. And he used to tell me, James, you should do real estate. All you do is put your sign in the yard and you can make some money. That's all you have to do. Just put your sign in the yard. And I would talk to him. We laugh about it and everything. And of course, I knew it wasn't that easy. But during high school, I got a hold of a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I read that book and it really resonated with me, just as far as the stories and the things that he went through. And it made me want to go into real estate. And from high school to college, I didn't even want to go to college at all. I got a twin sister. She's very studious, very smart. She AP type of student all through high school. I was your typical CD student. it wasn't that I didn't like school, but it just was kind of one of those things, especially when you're a minority in an all-white school and you kind of witness things that happen, people like moving their purse from you when you sit down by them, or being very cautious just because you walk in a room or something like that. It just kind of turned me away from just the traditional school to where I would goof off and do all kind of other things. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what school was like. So I kind of was set on just going into real estate, not going to college, having my sister go ahead and do that because I knew that's really what she wanted to do. But I mean, my parents really kind of pushed me to go ahead and go to college. So I ended up going to college on a probationary period where I was like, probation, you basically have one semester. And if you don't do well that semester, it's over for you. You just go back home. Unbeknownst to me, that was the best semester that I had in my college career. I came back with like a 3.8 GPA. And it's funny because my dad, before I went to college, he looked at me like it was one-on-one in the garage. My mom, everybody's all in the car, packed up and everything. He looks at me and says, "Hey, don't fuck up my money." I was like,
that's scary.
He was dead serious. I was like, okay, so I went there and I just kind of had a one-track mind to just really try my best to study. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it was easy, Brian. I was blessed to have people around me as far as counselors and things go at that school, to where they really called and checked up on you to make sure that you were going to classes and things of that nature. But anyways, I came back with that 3.8 GPA and just about almost straight A's. And that was the first time, I promise, in my life I ever see my dad almost look like he wanted to cry. So, I mean, it was on from then. I did school. I got a little bachelor's degree in agriculture economics. And it kind of showed me that when it comes to school and education, it's just really about applying yourself. Because when you're in these high schools, and even with having a twin sister, you see people get achievement awards and get recognized, and you don't get recognized for anything. It can be sometimes disheartening. And even if you feed into it, your peers and even teachers and counselors will make you think that you don't have the potential, that you're not as smart as you should be, or think you are, and they'll have you go a lesser route just because that's what they envision for you and not what you envision for yourself. So it can be very damaging. And I've seen a lot of friends who go that route and the things that come along with going on that road. So while I was in college, I decided to go ahead and go for that, my real estate, to go ahead and get my real estate license. And I became a realtor my junior year of college. Did it going on into my senior year and graduating. And I'll admit, just being young and selling a couple of homes, it boosted my ego, made me a little cocky, to where in college, I did not necessarily take the career path for my degree. And I wanted to go and start my own business and everything. And one of the things about that, when you are in a college setting and you're working with people who have dedicated their life to a career in education, when you tell them that you want to do something like entrepreneurship, they may look down on you or snub their nose, or maybe even feel like you think that you're too good for them for whatever reason, just because you don't want to take a traditional route. And what I mean by traditional route, a lot of people know this: when you go into college, it's kind of I don't want to call it a meal, but it is a funnel. Once you get your bachelor's, you have somebody to talk to you. Well, now you need to go ahead and get your master's. Once you get your master's, you have somebody to talk to you. Then you need to go ahead and get your PhD. And that is fine and dandy if you are just this straight A doctoral student and you have somebody willing to bankroll all those degrees in education. But if you're like many of us who come in on a probationary period, you just so happen to do well, and you realize all these additional degrees are costing money. And no one else is going to fund you to have that education and everything. And like I was saying, I was blessed to have people in my life to even tell me, James, hey, if you don't got nobody going to pay you as far as a job or a corporation to get you another degree, don't go for it. Just because economics wise, the cost of living and the cost of education. And not only that, I could go on a soapbox about this. but the amount of money that they pay you, and of course we know the black man is not necessarily paid quite as much as his peers when you achieve the same level of education as degree as your peers, so the math don't equal out when you go for this CEO position or a director position, whatever it is in high level management. It doesn't pan out, and you're now paying back all these loans, and the wages that you're getting, it never equals out to itself. So I said that to say a lot of people kind of close their doors to me when it comes to opportunities that I had to go into good corporations and businesses and start that kind of roadmap to working your way up in the corporate ladder. I was kind of shunned away from that because I did try to start my own business, real estate based, when I got out of college and everything, and just kind of ran with it from there. But I can't be mad about it because it's my journey, and I've been blessed thus far to be where I'm at. I'm an independent real estate broker. Like I said, Archer Properties and Realty is my brokerage. We do investments, and we also do sales just like any other real estate agent. But investments is the cornerstone of my business as of right now. And we're looking into getting into the commercial market. So that's just kind of where I am in a nutshell, where life and God has took me. Very blessed, though, thus far.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, too, because I think it's so important when we think about education. Because we're told when we were kids, go to school, get a good education, and get you a good job, and you'll be happy. That's like the four steps that are the journey that a lot of us are put on. Go to school, get a good education. Well, what does that mean? What does a good education mean when you really start to break it down and go, okay, so because we know so many people who went to school and got an education, how do we determine if it's good or not, right? The good education is the one that allows you to be able to move forward. Well, the part they forget about that is all the relationships and the people that you have to know, that you have to be able to utilize when you go forward, right? Because that's where that education comes in is, okay, now I got some knowledge, but who's going to help me take that knowledge, right? And then move it to the next level. You know, one of the things that I hear in your story, you were working on a degree in agricultural economics, which means that the expectation, whether you chose it or just because it is your environment, is that you were going to be on a farm somewhere working in the economics of what tobacco, whatever it is that's in Kentucky, right? I mean, is that...
Brian, it's funny you say that because initially that was my aim, and my whole aim, I like business and everything. And that was my aim in my mind. I said, well, if I get this degree, if all else fails, I can go back on the farm and at least help my dad, help my family with whatever they got going on. But unbeknownst to me, I want to say probably my senior year, when I'm kind of talking a little bit more serious about my dad, about his operation and his business. And my dad, he was a type to where he was very, very hush about his business. My mom had no idea about the ins and outs, a profit and loss statement about what he has. No one's ever seen that or knew anything about it. Only he knew. Like, I never did even go, or when I say go, I wasn't able to visit the office of where he went and bought and sold his cattle until I was a senior in college. So he was very kind of hush hush about it and didn't really involve me. But I say that to tell you, I want to say probably a semester before I was graduating, I asked him straight up. I said, Dad, how much money do I need to give you to become a partner with this? Pay for half the cattle, whatever. And he looked at me, he said, this business isn't for you. I said, what do you mean? He explained to me just how many barriers he had to break through as a Black man in that business, geographically in Georgetown, Kentucky, and how things go. And I didn't really understand it all the way until, I want to say, one summer I was helping him with some hay, and I helped him cut it. We put it in square bales and everything to get it ready to sell for farmers, horse farmers especially. And we spent about a couple of months for the first cut to get everything ready and done. And we had it all, squared away, had it all put up in the barn. And I was kind of excited. I was excited about making the money, Brian, because I was like, well, I'll be able to make some money off this. Is how many dollars? $8 a bale. We got 600 bales. We're going to have a few more after another cut after this. So I was kind of doing the math in my head. And then I want to say after a week after we had everything done, we didn't have any sales. And I was kind of bewildered. And I'm looking around. We're going to Southern States, which is a local agriculture retail shop, predominantly in Southern States. But anyways, we're going there to sell the hay. And my dad, he says to me, he says, hey, said, look, we're not going to sell any of this hay until like November, December. Now, it's like June or July, I want to say, maybe May. And I said, what? He said, yeah. I said, what do you mean? We got to wait for all the white people to sell their hay first. And after all their hay gets sold, they'll be desperate and there won't be any more hay. And then they'll buy our hay from us then. I said,
you're not talking about the 1800s, right?
No. This is you know what? This wasn't even the 90s, Brian. This is like 2000. Hold on. This is 2003, 2005, something like this. Wow. Yeah. I was shocked. Woo. And after that lesson, it all clicked to me. And I said, now I get why this is not for me and why you do not want me to go into this type of field. Because naturally, and even from farm to farmer, to farm family, I grew up in a rural area. That is a natural progression with white people. Daddy, granddaddy had the farm. I'm going to take the farm over. We're going to do it better and bigger, maybe. We're going to be more advanced technology-wise, and we're going to do it differently. But we're going to inherit and just keep it going because it's been good to him. It'll be good to me, and it'll be good to my kids. And that's just kind of how it goes. So, but not necessarily for Black people, as you know.
Wow. It just, you took me back in time a little bit because, you know, we can trace my grandma's side. She was born on a reservation in Oklahoma. So she's Choctaw Indian, and she moved to California with my grandpa. My grandpa's roots I can find from Kentucky, where they were on a plantation in Kentucky that we can trace back, you know, the Jones family that was there. But my summers were in Northern California at my grandpa's dairy and watching him. And I can remember going back and forth on the tractor and cutting the alfalfa and baling the hay and putting it up. And, you know, my mom tells of a story, I guess she has 8 or 9 brothers. You know, so there's 11 of them. And I guess the little school that they went to, and this would have been in the 60s, maybe early 70s, the little school that they went to, the other farmers thought that my mom's brothers were trying to date one of their daughters. Oh. And they showed up with their hoods on at my grandpa's house on their horses, talking about, we need your son to come out here because you're ready to hang him. And my grandpa was like, I know who you are because I'm the one who takes care of your horses. And I tell you what, if you pursue this any further, none of y'all are going to be alive. Right. So you're either going to take out my whole family now or you're going to get out of here. And there's going to be a fight. You know, and now I think about, you know, that is not just specific to Northern or Central California or this. That is like a true thing where when I think about your identity and who, you know, your dad shielded you from a lot of that and started giving you vision when he talked about you doing real estate and putting your sign in the yard and that kind of stuff, from some of those barriers that you would have had to gone through had you gone into, you know, and I don't know what it's like now, and maybe it's changed. I doubt it, though, in the super rural area. It's changed a whole lot. But, you know, it's just neat that you had somebody that really, truly was looking out for you to make sure that you didn't follow through some of those steps. And then I usually say in a lot of these shows, we don't get taught about money and how money works. And, you know, as Black men, we hide that identity from each other. We don't talk about it at the dinner table, and then we don't talk about it at all these places. But now, you know, as I'm thinking through what your story is here, there might be some reasons sometimes that we don't talk about that stuff. Am I right when I'm thinking about that?
You are right. And I'll say this to you, Brian. For me personally in my life, and I think even with my dad, one of the sad things about this is a lot of times as a kid, I wasn't allowed in those rooms and in those offices because younger me may have spoke out if I felt like maybe I don't feel like you're treating my dad as fair as he should be treated here.
Mm.
And, you know, you got to keep in mind with, and we talk about this, even my friends, and I'm sure you talk about it too amongst your colleagues and things, just how older Black people kind of have a different type of mind state working with and being around white people. If they're not radical, you know what I mean? And if, you know, or very militant, you know what I mean? If you're the type of Black person that you've always had to work around white people and that's just been a way of life for you, and not only has it been a way of life for you, it's helped you benefit and feed your family, then you may mind a little more when it comes around being around white people than the average Black person would. And maybe you would let things slide that other Black people wouldn't, you know what I mean? So it's a lot that goes into it, you know what I mean, as far as dealing when you talk about business wise, and not only that, just how Black people were treated. Even at banks, my dad took me to the bank with him growing up as a little kid to see him, how he borrowed money from a farm and how things went. And, you know, we found out later on, of course, we were charged higher interest rates than some of his peers and things of that nature. That's part of the territory, unfortunately, how it went for a lot of folks, especially Black people in business independently back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I think folks sometimes don't understand that there's all these little nuances that are part of what we had to do. And so I'm thinking about your dad and what he had to do to make sure he fed his family and to keep his business. You know, I'm going to take a group of men down to Alabama in the end of January, so we can kind of go through. We'll start in Birmingham, then we'll go to Selma, and then we'll end up at the Bryan Stevenson's Equal Justice Museum. And I went there last time and just realizing there were folks in the in the 1900s that were lynched and shot and killed, and the land was stolen from them for not. The one guy, the story I think of is he had seed that he wanted to sell at the market, and the seed, the people who were going to buy the seed didn't want to pay the price he was selling it for because he was Black, and the Black person shouldn't sell it for the same price as the white man sells it for. And he made the decision to say, I'm not going to sell that. And by making that decision, everything was taken away. He was strung up on a tree, shot 2,000 times with 10,000 people watching it. And then the family had to flee for their lives. They had 24 hours to get out of town, and his farms and everything was taken from him. And so that's a decision somebody's got to make in the spur of the moment. I guess I'm going to have to sell the seed for cheaper and not make as much money, or my family can get killed.
Right. And, Brian, it made me think about this. The family farm that I grew up on, a white person bought it from my dad. And we were the only Black family that was on that street for at least 3 decades. So it was just kind of like you're saying, it was one of those things where they didn't want Black people around back then. They didn't want you owning any land, especially. So a white person had to go ahead and buy it for my father and then deed it over to him basically later for him to have the land and the property.
Wow. What a story. What an incredible way to grow up. And then, okay, so now you transition into, real estate. You take your degree because, what's important about education is you learn how to learn. And if you can learn how to do that, it doesn't matter what the piece of paper says, right? You just know how to go through the steps of getting what you need to get, and you've completed something, right? By getting that degree, you said, I went through this process and now I completed it. I can go through any process and complete any process if I set my mind to. I think that's what, if we understand that that's what education is giving us, then I think we can do really well. So now you're saying, okay, I'm going to do real estate. I'm going to start my own business. What were some of the fears and the things that, probably the same fears that a lot of people have, no matter whether you're Black or white or whatever, but the things that you thought through as, can I do this, or should I go get a job with somebody else? I mean, you work for McDonald's for a little bit and go, wait a minute, this working for time, trading my time for money is not as fun as I thought.
Right.
But what allowed you to be the entrepreneur? I know your dad was, but the entrepreneur, not to say I need to go get a job.
I think for me, personally, having an example of someone, and not just my dad, my uncles, people that I've seen be entrepreneurs, even though it was through farming, a different vehicle and a different avenue, but just the joy in ownership in having something of your own, I think was the biggest motivating factor for me. Now, of course, it was a little scary just getting out there on your own, because when you're out there and things go bad, then it's just you left to kind of pick up the pieces in most cases. And I think that's really what holds a lot of people back, and that's even kind of what held me back in certain cases. But you just got to jump out there. You just got to jump out there and try it and see what happens, in most cases. And that's kind of where I was at with it, to where I jumped out there, I seen what it was like, but then I fell back and then said, well, hey, how can I balance this and have a best of both worlds with this? Because as you know, and for me, I want to say, let's see, I was in my early or mid 20s when I started doing real estate. And when you're kind of that young and you're making that kind of money doing real estate, it can go fast. And the bills keep coming and things of that nature, and you spend your money, and you still have all these bills backed up, but you're in this type of profession where you don't get a check every other week like you would any other job. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to learn how to budget and how to kind of make that happen. And that's kind of what got me into getting into investment property, because I was looking for another vehicle, a way to have reoccurring income, maybe without the pressures of having to make sure that these sales go through every month, or that this happens XYZ. I was looking for leverage in some kind of way, whether it's leverage in my life or leverage when it comes to the sales part of it. Even for some folks, because I still use my degree where, Brian, I've worked other jobs, especially during pandemic, to where I still held on to my business, as far as multifamily that I do with investments and things, to where you leverage the two together and everything. And it just kind of motivated me to kind of want to do more and go bigger, to where I'm really just out there all the way, just independent 100% with the business.
That's cool. Let me ask you about relationships, and I'm going to couple it with trust. And sometimes I do them separately, but with you, I'm going to do them together. What allowed you, as you got going, like you're young, and you've seen a whole lot of things that have happened in the community that you're at. And so because you're in real estate, you have to trust people. You have to say, I don't really know a lot about the industry. Plus, I don't know who the players are in the industry that I need to be able to trust, because I can't make it this through by myself. I can't just start out and go stick a sign in the yard without a seller saying, I trust you to sell this house for me, or a buyer saying, I trust you to take me around to do stuff. And then what kind of relationships with that did you have to cultivate in order to be able to move forward in this?
That's an excellent question. So, with my journey in real estate, I started out working for your big box name brokerages. Century 21 was my very first brokerage that I started out with. I was very happy to be a part of the brokerage. I did the classes and training just like they do with any young realtor that they do to this day. It's a little more sophisticated now, but they gave me the good old binder, how to cultivate buyers leads, sellers leads. I had a real estate coach, a very nice lady to me. So it was good. I was so excited about it. I had my own magnet on the side of the car that I put on, just because I was that motivated to get somebody to call my phone to want to buy or sell some real estate. So the experience was great. And I say it was great because it was a stepping stone. I was going in there. Now, mind you, besides myself, there's one other Black agent, and he worked for the post office. I want to say full time, and he did real estate part time. But one other Black agent, I rarely saw him. He was very, very busy. But in that type of environment, I was hardly able to get on the phone in the office. And the phone at that time, that's where you get majority of your leads and things to kind of really get the business going. So, of course, there was never any phone time for me. My name would get scratched. Always something would happen when it was time for my turn to have leads on the phone. So I was still, though, just through the whole good old family tree and lead tree that they teach you and things through real estate, I was able to have just a couple of leads that I was working on my own. But I remember I went to a barber shop and one of the guys was cutting my hair. He was like, "Oh, James, you in real estate, man? That's real good and everything." He's like, "Hey, are you eating?" I was like, "Man, what do you mean?" Like, he said, "Man, you tell me they treating you real nice and everything, but are you eating?" He says, "Look, I'll let this man right here. He's a broker. He's black. He's in the city. Man, just give him a call. See if he can help you out or whatever." And I was kind of skeptical about it, but, kind of goes along with trust. We were talking about your use. And keep in mind, me coming from a predominantly white school, I'm kind of used to a certain environment. And just good or bad, whether they treat you good or whether they treat you bad or indifferent, that was the environment that you were used to and that I was used to. So I was skeptical about calling him, but I gave it a week or two. I called him up. He brought me over to his office, and this is one of the only black brokerages in Lexington at this time. And we talked, had a wonderful conversation. I ended up going over to his brokerage, and I'll tell you, that was my very first time and experience on a professional level, seeing other black people in Escalade pickup trucks, Benzes. Everybody had a European car in the parking lot. Everybody had a site construction that they were doing, homes. Everybody had a different other type of real estate business that they were doing, whether it was mortgage, a black mortgage company upstairs as well with the black real estate office downstairs, 2-level building. It was good. It was about 8 of us as agents, but it was really good, to meet this man, to deal with. He was what you would call a power broker. He had leads and would just give the leads out like they're candy to everybody. That was just kind of the environment of the brokerage that he ran. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see black people that look like you, doing things that you want to do, working in spaces maybe that you never even thought about working in, and being successful at it. And it took trust to be able to go over there, to deal with that man, and just to kind of, because you know how we are, just working in business and everything. And sometimes you get into different kind of organizations or businesses with us, and it may come off a little janky. Maybe it's professional. Maybe it's a little bit of both. You got to pick your poison on which route you want to choose in it and everything. So that's just kind of what it was as far as the business goes. But it was great. I mean, we stayed in business and we were there until the mortgage bubble happened. Mm-hmm. After that, it kind of flushed out a lot of folks from there. But that was really my first kind of taste and experience, actually meeting people that looked like me in that space, that were doing and that were successful. And it was very inspiring. It was inspiring just to come out there, to be, even if I didn't have nothing to do or any phone calls to make, I would come out there just to absorb and see what was going on and what they were doing.
It seems to be one of the themes that continues to come up as I'm doing these is the ability to see somebody that looks like us or somebody who looks like you be able to succeed. There's something about that that gives you the belief, and maybe if it's just a little bit of belief that you can do it. And instead of having to, I guess, trailblaze and figure out if it can be done, if you could just see a glimpse of somebody that, okay, because I think we're told so often that we can't, that we shouldn't be in this space, mm-hmm. that this is for somebody else. And so, whether we're looking for mentors or we're looking for coaches, did you have any, after you saw that, did you seek out any other people that you wanted to be in these associations or rooms or, I don't know, groups or something that allowed you to continue to find out what others were doing in this space? Or did you just have to figure, you just went after it by yourself? What was your experience in that?
Well, I initially, because to be honest with you, I'm kind of one of those guys. If I meet you and you're working in a space or doing something that I want to do and you're very successful, good or bad, I'm gonna try to be your best friend. I want to be right there with you. You know what I mean? Whether you're going to, to get something to eat, I want to see what your eating habits are. I want to see it all. I want to figure out what makes you tick, just because I'm trying to be where you're at. You know what I mean? And maybe I need to change my whole thing too and tick like you're ticking, just so we can both get there and everything. So no, absolutely. I sought those guys out and really just came around and hung around just to kind of see exactly what it looks like and what it takes, because a lot of things that we take for granted, and even I'll say for myself, growing up as a black man, young black man, I only was around and saw other black farmers. So the agricultural space, I knew about that and I saw a level of success with that. Now, when it comes to something different like real estate, who do you know that's black is doing real estate? We don't have any other family members that we could call on, or, you know what I mean? Nobody knows anyone else. So if you are able to put yourself in spaces where there's people there and they're obliged and they're able to kind of help you, go with it. Now, the thing with us that's not talked about a lot is that when we get in these spaces, we find people, they may not be willing to help you. Maybe they feel that, hey, I got here, this young guy needs to figure it out on his own because I had to figure it out on my own. Or maybe there's a level of jealousy there to where they feel like, well, I get all my leads from so-and-so. I'm the only black person that needs to be in this space. If I bring more of y'all in here, then they're going to ruin me or they won't let me have it anymore. There's that mentality that's happened a lot with us.
How do we stop perpetuating that? Because it is prevalent. It is that the I almost a viewpoint of there's lack. There's not enough homes out there. So if I'm the one who's doing it and I'm in this community, because you can't get to everybody, but sometimes we think that we could, or that somebody's going to outdo us or better us. And my goal now in my thought process is I want you to do better than me, but because I guess I'm happy with who I am. I'm in a good spot where who I am, if I have the ability to help, because I pray, every day the Lord give me the wisdom to do the things that you want me to do that pleases you, and then it serves others, right? If I can serve others, that's going to be the greatest glory. But we have so many people in your thought process, what could we do, or how could we approach people, or how can we develop trust, or whatever it is, to kind of root out some of that, or we just stay away from people who are like that and develop groups of people who are different? What's your thoughts?
I think the best way, just from our conversation, just kind of popped in my mind. We have to see it. And what I mean by seeing it, we have to see each other help one another to kind of change that mentality to where one feels like, well, I can't give them none of mine because if I give them some of mine, then I'm not going to have it. No, if we share and share alike, we'll be richer altogether. Can't be truly powerful just by being one king and one person and you feel like you're just going to rule everybody or be better than everybody. If we're all better together, then we are more powerful as a unit than just individually.
Wow, that is true. I love that you're saying that, because that is so true. If we can see each other, and I think that's a lot of what Journey to Freedom is about, is how do we get together? How do we form some groups where we're in these rooms and we're doing transformative stuff and we're having these conversations and we're talking about our money and we're talking about our relationships and we're talking about the things that have truly made us whole as people. And speaking about money, I know one of the things that you say right now is, you're into the investment side of real estate. And I think a lot of us don't understand investments. We don't understand money, right? It's hard for us to even balance a book or checkbook. I do a thing where I do a daily mindset, and I talk about one of the things is the do's and don'ts. And one of the do's is you need to understand how much money you got. You need to understand, if you're, I'm not saying your wife shouldn't be the person, if she's the one who's better with numbers and better at the books and that kind of stuff, running your household finances if you're in a marriage and it works. But you should know what's in there. It shouldn't be that there's an allowance that goes to you and then you just go do stuff. You got to be part of understanding that thing called money, because in order to move into the circles you need to move into, money's a big part of it. Some people, well, money's not that important. No, money's up there with oxygen, because it allows you to do the things that you want to do and move through this world and space in a way. It's not the actual money itself. This is a piece of paper, but it's what the money represents that allows you to get to be that person that God has intended you to be. And so it's super important. And if we don't understand it, how has it being in this investment space helped you understand money better? And then how can we learn money even in a bigger way?
So to answer your first question, being in the investment space made me realize how much I don't understand about money, because there's a lot of things. It's more to it than just balancing the checkbook or using your online banking and knowing how much money is going in and out of your account. There's cap rates, there's return on investments, there's internal rate of returns. There's a lot of different things that go into money that we don't quite really understand. And even on a basic level, we're just tipping just the tip of the iceberg there, if you will, as far as that goes. And that's kind of piqued my interest because I didn't really realize just how deep it can get when it comes to money and investments. And even to the point, I say to a lot of my friends and family, if I had to do it over, maybe I would have majored in math, and just just because it's so much. And I've met people along the way in college that, especially I had a hard time in math. I went to tutoring sessions and everything, and you meet people that's really good in calculus and things, and you find out it's a whole nother language and things like that when it comes to it. But it all has to do with math. And the better you are at math, easier it is when it comes to money and investments. I had to help my mom out when she retired from her job after 40 plus years, just with her retirement income and how to shield yourself from getting hit by tax penalties at the end of the year because of your retirement income, and the right vehicles to put your money in and things of that nature. So it's a lot that goes into it, and you got to dive in and just learn the basics. Find somebody who knows a little bit more than you about money and investments, and that doesn't necessarily have to be an investment banker. It could be just someone who maybe that invests their pension in stocks and that follows it. It's somewhere that you can it starts with just stepping stones, taking it from one place and just going from there with it and just kind of building. But you got to start somewhere with it. The main thing that a lot of us do is that we just go blind about it. You go and you hope and pray that there's money in that account when you put your card in it and you put in that amount, and hopefully it comes out.
I've been there. Please let it go through. Oh my gosh, yes, I have absolutely. Well, and you say that because I haven't had a math class since, I'm trying to think of like the actual math class, 10th grade or something like that. Now I had to do statistics and stuff, but people ask me, what is your doctorate in? And I say, truthfully, my doctorate is in trust and relationships. Because if I can find the right relationship and I can trust the person that I have that relationship with, then they can help me with the things. And the other thing is, I guess I have a doctorate in is asking what other people would say is a dumb question. Well, the people who are judging me, oh, that's a dumb question. Or I'm judging myself saying, that's a dumb question. I shouldn't ask it because I should already know it. And I think a lot of us do that. We say, I'm not going to ask this question to this expert because he's going to think I'm dumb, or he's going to think that I don't know, I should know this, and I don't. And I'm really good at saying, hey, James, I have no clue. and I want you to walk me through this like I'm a third grader. Because right now in this area, I'm a third grader. So help me understand it. And if it sounds like it's stupid, I'm sorry. I just don't know. Because I'd rather do that and ask that question than sit through, there's so many seminars, or I'll watch a YouTube video, right, that's on finances, let's say, and they're using all these words, like cap rates and investment, and, turns and times and that kind of stuff, or whatever those words are. And then I'm going inflation, recession, and I'm going, okay, well, I don't even know what a recession is. And I'm going to sit up here like, yeah. And then like walk away like this was worthless to me. So I'll be that guy that's in the crowd going, what the heck is recession? Or they use an acronym or something.
Absolutely. I had to learn, Brian, to be that guy as well, because just like you, I've been scared, didn't ask the question, and then you walk away from things, you're like, well, this is worthless. I sat through this whole thing. I don't know. I didn't grasp the basics, so I have no idea of what I was supposed to learn or what I was taught. And just like you're saying, I've kind of learned when you do ask those difficult questions, it's a moment of vulnerability. And the person who knows, they'll relate a little bit more, saying, hey, okay, let me back it up a little bit or slow it down, just because if he doesn't understand, I know he's not alone, and he's not the only one that doesn't get it or understand either. He's probably one of everybody else in here that it may have just kind of went over their head completely, and we can kind of go back to the basics here and get a foundation and understand about it. And to your point, it helps build relationships with people too, because they kind of see what level you're at with it, and they can kind of work from that and go with it.
Yeah, and we have to realize there's going to be people that I'll ask the question to that really don't want to answer it. They want to move forward. They don't want to spend the time. But what I found is there are even more people who want to take me by the hand because now I got this knowledge, and I've been waiting for somebody to explain this to and see if I can, because not everybody's a good teacher. And so the guy who shines me on that says, I'll tell you later, whatever, and then they give you an explanation that's even harder than the one that when you started out. I'm like, well, you're not the person. That's that. I don't need to be in your room right now. Maybe
That's
someday
right.
I'll jump in there and you can help me. But there's so many, especially when I'm talking, like yesterday I was meeting with a gentleman who was, he's 80 years old. And, I'm a treasurer for the local NAACP. So I run in, and I was telling him, I do treasury at the 5,000 foot level, right? I'll pay the bills and I'll do the QuickBooks and I'll do that. But as far as I'm not an accountant, nor do I want to be an accountant. And he's
Okay.
like, well, I got a degree in accounting. Let me show you some stuff. And I'm like, oh man. And he's going through some of the things. Some of it I don't want to know because it just fills my head up with stuff that is not in the space that I'm at.
I get it. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the willingness to help when I just say, I don't know. And if you can get that from what we're sharing today, for those of you who are watching this, is you have to be bold if you don't know. If you truly don't know, don't be scared to speak up. You might feel dumb for a few seconds. You might feel dumb for 10 minutes, but once that person takes you by the hand and explains it to you, you don't feel dumb no more. Instead of walking around and right.
You're right. And honestly, it's the grace of God, to be honest with you, just how that person receives you and the response. Because like you said, either they are going to relate and not only help you, but nurture you and get you to the level of understanding you need to be, or they'll shun you away. And either way, it's the Lord's work to show, hey, maybe we don't need to be around that person or be in this space, right now at this moment. And in certain cases, that person that embraces you and shows you, you never know, that person being a stepping stone, you may supersede that person that shunned you once upon a time. So it's really just the miraculousness of just how God works with everything when you allow yourself to humble yourself and just ask for grace when it comes to working with each other and things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So, we've been talking, and this has been amazing. I said we might not get to the pillars, but we've talked about faith, and we've talked about finance, and we've talked about identity, and we've talked about trust. And I think the one thing we didn't spend a lot of time on is health. But even if we don't, there's something that we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to make sure that the audience that watches this, the people who have been there, it has been. I got a page of notes from our conversation and things that I took from. That's why I say I'm the luckiest person in here, because some of the nuggets that you have talked about have just been so good for me and where I'm at in my space. What else would you say to others who that you want to make sure that you relay that message to, or a message to?
Sure. The only thing I think I want to say is that, for one, having faith in God, walking right, and having and believing in yourself is essentially important when it comes to going into business. Because as we know, and even as Black people, and I can just talk about myself personally, family will try to shun you from going into business. Oh, you sure you want to do that? Well, so-and-so did it. They went broke within a month, or they lost everything they had when they invested their money in that, or they went into real estate. Are you sure you're going to be able to manage that, or how are you going to have time? People give you more barriers than what you think about in what you've ever thought about. And, as long as you have faith in God and in yourself, there's not anything you can't accomplish, honestly. And not only that, and I think where a lot of us lose is that we don't take that step, because when we take that step, we not only inspire ourselves, but we inspire other people around us, especially the ones that told you that you couldn't do it.
Gosh, that is so true. And it's your family. Sometimes you just have to be away from your family for a little bit,
Yeah.
because I truly believe they want what's best for you, but
Mhm.
they can only tell you from their perspective what
Right.
they believe is what's best for you based on their experiences. not on
Mm-hmm.
your experiences or what you're doing or what you're reading and who you're associating with and all the factors you're putting into it. All they remember is Jimmy down the street, invested in something and he lost all his money. And then, my next question is, where's Jimmy at now? Because, as I'm finishing my book now called The Decision Formula, and it's all about making these decisions. And we have to be willing to say, okay, one, what if I lose everything? Because
Right.
98% of the decisions we make are reversible. And so if we make the mistake, we learn from it. As long as we learn from it and we just don't do it again, it's
Exactly.
okay to fail. And so, that's a question for that family member. What if I fail? You still gonna be my brother? You still gonna be my cousin? You still gonna love me? You still gonna help pick me up? You still gonna take me to the
Mm-hmm.
store? We still gonna hang out? Or you just gonna hate me if I fail? So let me know now so I know should I hang out with you or not. And then that part of, okay, if I'm going to get my leg amputated, that's irreversible. I got to do some really thinking about, am I going to die without it or not? And if I am, then I do it. But most of these decisions that we make are so reversible that it's okay to go for it. You don't have to be 100% certain to be able to move forward and go. And then if you have God on your side and you have your faith and you're making your prayers and you're doing things. I have this thing right now that, and I'll just because we're in this show and I'll read it. It's something that I say every single morning. It was one of the people on this podcast that he gave me this. His name was Dr. Man, I can't remember his name right now, but I'll come back to it and put it in the chat here. But it says, today, tomorrow, and for the rest of my life, I will walk in the favor of God in my health. I will walk in the favor of God in my finances. I will walk in the favor of God in my business. I will walk in the favor of God in my marriage. I will walk in the favor of God in my key relationships. I will walk in the favor of God in my ministry. I will walk in the favor of God with my children. I will walk in the favor of God with my grandchildren. I will walk in the favor of God in my debt elimination. I will walk in the favor of God with my credit and creditors. I will walk in the favor of God with my loans and applications. I will walk in the favor of God in my service to others. I will walk in the favor of God with my leaders. I will walk in the favor of God with my investors. I will walk in the favor of God with my mentors and coaches. I will walk in the favor of God with my new projects. I will walk in the favor of God with my team. I will walk in the favor of God with those who work for me and with me this day, paid or volunteer. Today and every day, I will walk in the favor of God, talk in the favor of God, and operate in the favor of God. The favor on my life changes for me rules, regulations, and policy. It surrounds me and covers those who are close to me. It is in every area of my life for the rest of my life. This day, I expect favor. I live favor. I anticipate favor. The time for favor is now, right now, today. O Lord, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm so that I will be free from pain. Dear Lord, give me the wisdom to do the things you put me on this earth to do in a way that pleases you and serves others. When I get those negative things from my family that say, oh, you can't do it, somebody, let me read this to you, and then you can tell me if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not on the right side of this, right? Oh my gosh, that just talking to you and thinking about that and saying if we're doing things right and we're working on it, God's going to work it out, right? His favor is going to
That's
allow
right.
us to do it. So, well, thank you. Any closing thoughts?
Once again, it's been a pleasure, Brian. I appreciate you having me on this podcast. Been wonderful. Thank you.
Cool. And so for those of you who are listening, just another episode, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead, click the bell, whatever we put up there. I don't even know how a lot of this works. I just know that you are going to be blessed by being part of the Journey to Freedom Project. If you're wanting to say, hey, I'm one of those guys who wants to go to Alabama with you and learn about all the folks where we came from and how we're going to get to where we're going. We have what's called the Emancipation Theater. A guy named Jeff Campbell. He's one of this podcast. He's going to talk to us about story and our own story and how to move that forward. If you're thinking about relationships, whatever it is that you need, let us help you, because at the part of this program is getting you in the right rooms with people so that you have things to talk about so that you can further your life. And so James has been just amazing. I would suggest going back through, if you just listened to this for the first time and you didn't have a notepad with you, go pull this out, because he said some things that I took, and I'm written down, and I'm getting ready to go. I'm going to go just do another podcast just so I can, or just a YouTube video or something, so I can say the things that I heard from him. So you guys have a wonderful, awesome, just incredible day today. Don't forget you are God's greatest gift, and He loves you if you allow Him to. We'll talk to you on the next one.